Good afternoon, everybody. Michael Doolin, Clover HR, Managing Director, Clover HR. Paul, very kindly, and thank you, Paul, for the opportunity to speak this evening. He asked me to come up with an interesting theme about an area of HR, an area of work that I've been involved in for some time. And I couldn't think of anything else other than to talk about something that's occupied me for the last 31 years. And it's really part of the reason I went into the profession way back in 1987, is what is it that this thing means called engagement? What is it that drives people to act above and beyond the call of duty every single day? How do you get somebody, whether they're a solicitor's clerk, whether they're a payroll clerk, whether they're an accounts person, whether they're an IT technician, whether they work in HR, how do you get them to work above and beyond the call of duty every single day? What's the discretionary effort? Today, HR people came up with this really horrible term called engagement. When I started in the profession 30 years ago, it was all about driving superior performance every single day. And that really has occupied me for the last 30 years across various organizations. And that's really the theme of today. So I'm going to talk about what I think that looks like, what the influences are, and how I think any organization can put some of those lessons into place. The lens through which I look is this. This is my career over the last 30 years. It's really quite sad actually to look at this and to think my career is on one slide, but that is me over 30 odd years. I started as a graduate trainee in Ford Motor Company, moved rapidly through the ranks, spent 10 years at DPD up the road in Smethwick, spent a few years at British Airways, I've lectured at Warwick for the last 10 years. As I mentioned earlier, I've been a lay member of the Employment Tribunal panel for 4.5 years. And very recently, 2 years ago, set up this thing called Clover HR. That's the lens through which I speak. I'm influenced a little bit by things I do outside of work. They're my passions. I didn't get the job at Manchester United this week, but I did manage Droitwich Girls under 10 for 4 years, and we did come second in our league. And outside of work, like one or two people around the table, I've been known to visit the Hawthorns, and I get involved with playing rugby, and only last year I was playing rugby for Droitwich Vets at the tender age of 51, but they told me it was only roll on, roll off, and I only did 20 minutes, but I had to play all games, so I wasn't very happy. That's why I joined Amnesty International, to get me out of jail, in case they took any sufferance. My other key influences are the family. This is cost center 1, that is cost center 2, otherwise known as two daughters. That's the woman that I live with, who's never far from a glass of Prosecco. And I come from a little island called Ireland and a village called Dublin. That is a reference to my mother, who's just turned 80. 6 months ago, she got a hole-in-one. So I'm incredibly proud of my mother. Despite my father and I playing for over 40 odd years, my mother, who's been playing for 5, got a hole-in-one 6 months ago. So let me just give some numbers here. External research would say 8% of British workers are engaged. That is only 8% of the entire population, I think it's 28 million who go to work every day, are engaged. That is 8% of people want to go above and beyond the call of duty every day. The real number there is 92% don't. So what is it that organizations do to turn people off? What is it that you as a manager, what is it that you as a business owner, what is it that you as a key influencer can do to turn people on? When you do, 21% likelihood, this data is 2 years old, but it's still relevant, I think. 21% of businesses will achieve greater profitability. So if you are part of that engaged population, you will see better results in your organization. And that's proven. So this isn't pink or fluffy. This isn't HR talking out of their hat. This is real bottom line numbers that say, if you do this stuff, you will achieve greater results. Obviously, the customer satisfaction and obviously revenue performance is that bit bigger in organizations that have a more engaged workforce. So there is a bottom line here. There's a very famous guy who I've read a lot of called Chang. He's chairman of China Life, an insurance business. And he said the following, and you can read that behind me. He said the key to retaining somebody's heart, I may pay them money, and he employs 700,000 people, but the key to retaining a person's heart is to understand what makes them tick. It's to understand why would they want to come to work on an every single day basis. And if you can translate what the overall goal of an organization, what part do I play, what influence do I have in the organization on an everyday basis, you'll find the key. So what are the buttons that turn people on? In my world, back in the world of distribution, when I was the HR director at DPD, my challenge was always to get to the depot worker who started at 2 o'clock in the morning in Newcastle. And if I could find the tools, the processes, the environment, the controls that would get to a depot worker at 2 o'clock in the morning in Newcastle, I had a chance to turn around the organization. And that was always the bottom line for me. So, how do I get the overall mission, vision, value of an organization down to the lowest common denominator? And that's a challenge. Chang says it's a challenge, but he did it over 700,000 times a day. And his organization did that. And it's fascinating what he did, and it's well worth the read. When you do see good engagement, and when you do see bad engagement, it looks something like this. And if you can follow the logic, that's what good looks like. So think of an organization that looks like this. Is this the civil service? Is this the Bell of Bell Broughton? Is this ENTSB back in the heyday? Is this, I don't know, is this any of the major is this Virgin? But what is this? Because bad looks like this. It starts down here, theft, sabotage, resignations, resistance to change. Start there and goes like that. And the challenge every single day as a business owner, the challenge every day as a managing director, the challenge every day as a manager is to drive this up there as much as possible. And my thesis 31 years later, because I've got it wrong so many times, is that this goes up and down like a yo-yo. Environment, people, processes, economic factors, issues, just people being people. And every day, everybody different walks into the workplace. You will see all of this, and it's constantly moving. But there are some common things that I think are fundamental building blocks to every great organization. And based on research, and this is based on research, the fundamental building blocks of every great organization are those behind me. If you don't have good leaders, if you don't have good teamwork, if you don't have pride and commitment, if you don't have people who want to come to work to do an interesting job, those fundamental building blocks of any great organization, no matter how big, how small, won't drive your engagement. And they were great challenges for me over 30 odd years, particularly around this. How do you make a warehouse operator at 6 o'clock in the morning in Smethwick who's got 5 trucks to empty? How do you make him or her understand actually they're crucially important? How do you make the tax clerk understand that the 60 tax returns that they have to complete in January are hugely important? It's a challenge. This is a reference, this slide, to a long service award program we had back in the day in one of those organizations. The reason why I put it up there is that every organization has a long service program. We had introduced one. It was quite a sexy thing in my mind. It was web enabled. You had to have a password. It was rolled out across 5,000 people. Took a lot of work to get out there. And I remember being in a depot in North Wales and speaking to a depot colleagues about this, 6 o'clock in the morning in North Wales, in Abergele. And one of the guys stood at the door and said to me, "Do you know what, Michael? You can take that and put it where the sun doesn't shine." Because when I went out yesterday and I came back late, having delivered a parcel for 2.5 hours in the wet and in the rain, and I came back in, you know what? Well, I would have liked as recognition, I would have liked this. I would have liked a simple thank you, a little appreciation. And it reminded me about the importance of one tiny little button, which is around recognition. How many times, therefore, have you said thank you today? How many times have you gone out of your way to say to your guys and girls, thanks for a good job? I know I haven't done it enough today. How many times will I do it tomorrow? It's hugely, hugely valuable. One of the things we did back in the day, and again, we just reminded ourselves, people that leave organizations, they're worth investing in. So write to them, speak to them, conduct your exit interviews to do your simple things. If I draw 30 years together in one simple slide, these are the buttons, in my humble opinion, that I think are important that you need to mix in the bucket all the time to drive superior performance, to drive engagement. Have good leaders, have good teamwork, have a benefit program, have a development journey, however subtle it may be. Have care and consideration for your people. Have some recognition, no matter what it is. And remember, recognition doesn't have to be a mobile phone a day, helps you work, rest, and play. It can be a simple thank you. It can be something simple. Have a job that I can understand and I can relate to the overall mission. Have pride and commitment, communication, induction, all of that stuff. If you can hit those buttons, and there's 10 of them, every single day in your organization and translate them in whatever way you wish to, that will drive engagement. You will be part of that 8% of British industry who achieve greater profitability, greater satisfaction, and greater overall performance. And that's proven. And I think that's 30 years across that lens of organizations. If I have some further tips based on my own examples, have somebody to focus on this, measure your employee engagement in each team as quickly as you can, have action plans, have a CEO who gets behind it, and keep doing it, keep investing in it. And that's after 30 years. And sometimes across some of those organizations, we got that wrong because some of those lessons weren't learned. So if I could have my time back again, I'd have that in place in every business that I was in. Anybody ever employ a HR director? That's what I would ask you to ask them to be able to demonstrate that they have. Curiosity, they're driven, they're collaborative, they're credible. They're the ingredients of a successful HR function today. Not the reactive transactional thinking that typically has preoccupied the profession for 30 years. But that's my talk, guys, this afternoon. I hope it's been of interest. If anybody's got any questions, feel free or drop me an email. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.